I'm going to call the meeting to order. Our advisory committee, San Joaquin County Election Advisory Committee. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll have the vice chairman our vice, head of vice, do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With the permission, unless there's an objection, I'm going to change the agenda a little bit. It looks like we have some interest in public comment in case the public at large wants to make their comments. I was suggesting to the board that we move the public comment section after our approval of the minutes. And if there's no objection to that, that's what we will do for this meeting. And so with that.
I object.
You object? Okay, if we, I'll entertain a motion then that we change the agenda. So can I have a motion?
Make a motion that.
I will call on you if you want the floor.
Okay, call me.
What, do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we do not change the agenda.
Okay. All those in favor of leaving the agenda as it is?
Second.
Okay, the motion, there's 2 yeses. All those opposed?
No.
No, I will vote no. So again, I would suggest to the members that we move the public comment up after the Election Advisory Committee minutes, approval of the minutes. We have 3-2, yes. That's, yes, still a majority.
Chairman Emmett,
yes.
who was the second on the motion? Just for the minutes, so we can record it.
I believe Member Cushman was the second, and
No, I didn't second.
you didn't.
No.
Christina, were you the maker of the motion?
I second it. We keep the agenda as is.
For the minutes, you want to know who made the motion, who seconded?
Through the chair.
Yes.
All 5 members are here today, so the alternates don't have a role in voting today because you're all present. So it would be the 5 of you making that decision.
Right, and I assumed it was 2 to 3,
Perfect.
unless there's an objection. All right, thank you. So with that, I'll do our roll call, starting with Pat. Pat, were you here? Yes, you're here. Pamela's here. I'm here. David's here. Christina's here. My math is correct. That's 5. So with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
So made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
1 abstention. All right. Now we will move to public comment. And we do have a format that we're going to suggest for those who have not attended one of these meetings. You'll have 3 minutes. And I believe Olivia has some that she might want to read that aren't here. Is that what you were suggesting to me earlier?
Josh is actually going to read the written
That's
public
right.
comment. Yes.
The ones that were mailed in, he will read. So Josh, why don't we have the folks that are here go first? We'll start with Mr. Henry, Tom Henry. Tom, you'll have 3 minutes. Yes, please.
Good evening to everyone in attendance. My name is Thomas Henry. I'm a 28-year third grade teacher with Stockton Unified School District. I am here as a concerned registered voting citizen of San Joaquin County. I've been voting by mail for the past 20 plus years. That sounds like it's cutting out. But. That's good. Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you. It is a valid, legal, and convenient way to vote. My legal signature on the envelope matches my voter registration card. Apparently, though, some members of the San Joaquin County Commissioners are believing in conspiracy theories that Democrats are fronting fraudulently returned forms. This is nonsense. Studies have been done to show that those accusations against Democrats are false. On the other hand, there have been some cases in Arizona and Florida that have shown fraudulent cases brought forth by Republicans. If you want to push a conspiracy theory in your agenda, you should not be in government. You should go start a podcast. Keep mail-in voting as the legal and valid choice it already is. And if you don't, well, please change your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. David Diskin.
Hey everyone. I hate cliches, but I can't help being reminded that the devil is in the details. Your recent letter to our governor and president urged them to make, quote, make voter identification a requirement. And the sentence ends there. I need to know what that means. And it bothers me that the letters don't go into more detail. It bothers me that this committee and the county supervisors approved these letters without going into the details. Because I've seen what some people think that it means. Some people think that it means I'll need to show my ID each and every time I vote, or others, it means only when someone registers. But I don't know what you meant by that. For some people, like the state of Georgia, it meant that if even one character, one hyphen, one space was different on my ID or the voter rolls, that my vote, my registration, my ballot would have been rejected or taken weeks to cure. For some people, like the state of Texas, it meant that your student ID wasn't valid, but your gun permit was. We have hundreds of students attending the University of the Pacific that have no need for California IDs. What do we tell our students? We have senior citizens who have long since given up driving and probably haven't seen their own driver's license for years. What do we tell our seniors? If I've simply lost my ID and I'm waiting weeks for DMV to mail me a new one, what do I do? For some people, like those in North Carolina, registrations were invalid if the applicant didn't have a street number on their application, like hundreds of people who live in reservations. What do we tell our Native Americans? And if I prefer mail-in ballots, like I've been doing for over 30 years, what then? Do you intend to take away the convenience that over half of the county currently enjoys? Do you want to crowd our polling stations even more on election day while thousands of us have our IDs checked? Or will you allow me to mail in my ballot by simply writing in my social security number and driver's license on the outside envelope where anyone can see it? That was tried too in Georgia, and it led to thousands of ballots being rejected because of typos in the system and other clerical errors. This is going to significantly delay election results and add burden to our poll workers and raise costs. So again, I stress the devil is in the details. How many people do you want to disenfranchise? Who do you want to inconvenience? How much extra burden do you want to impose on our register of voters? And what exactly do you mean by making voter ID a requirement? Please figure out what that means before you send any more letters to our state and federal leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea, is it Sanjay? Sanji? Thank you, Andrea.
Chairperson Amador and members of the Election Advisory Committee. My name is Andrea Sanji, and I reside in Lodi in District 4. I'm a fifth-generation native Californian, and I voted in every election since I was old enough to do so. Before I start, I think it's really important that everybody in this room and everybody watching at home, how many of you committee members functioned as sworn poll workers before you took this position? Can you raise your hand? Okay, I see.
We're not here to be polled, ma'am.
No worries.
Let's
Just-
have your
Just making
comments.
sure, thank you. So I'll skip asking how many of you did it in the last election. I thank you for your service. I too work the elections as a poll worker. My husband and I both take vacation days from our jobs, find someone to take our kids to and from school, and watch them while we're gone from before dawn to after they go to bed. I think this is really important information for the public to know because this committee has been a platform for people to share falsehoods, dishonest statements, and outright lies not backed by any verifiable information. Lies that anybody who worked as a poll worker would know are untrue. It's my understanding that the charter of this committee is to review election practices to improve election integrity and not make it harder for citizens of our county to vote. I'm sure this is a challenge for you. Chairperson Amador has indicated in these meetings on the record that he did not know if the election he lost was stolen. Steve Ding, the San Joaquin County Supervisor who oversees this committee, was a guest speaker in his official capacity at Freedom Fest, an election denier event put on by the poll workers who gave testimony about their experience at the last meeting. Time and time again, you've discarded verifiable facts from the registrar of voters about the processes and procedures that sworn poll workers like me execute at every election. In your last meeting, you voted to recommend changes to the California election law. You made a formal recommendation to the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors that would disenfranchise many new voters in our county by eliminating same-day registration and conditional voting. That's usually my job when I'm working the polls. There were 9,000 same-day voter registrations, 4% of all votes cast, and 25% of the in-person votes. I personally processed over 100 of them at my polling location. Why should these people not be allowed to vote? They are legally eligible to register. Are they any less legally eligible to register on voting day than they are 2 weeks before? Conditional voting and same-day registration resolve so many issues at the polling location. Without conditional voting and same-day registration, if a voter's name is not found in the poll pad, there are no other options available for them to cast their vote. If they recently moved, they would be turned away and unable to vote. These ballots are some of the most scrutinized ballots cast. Do not let anyone tell you ID is not required for their ballots. It is. Do not let anyone tell you these ballots are not segregated from all other ballots. They are.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
I'm going to add it to your comments.
I appreciate that very much. There's not an option to waive documenting ID at point of registration on election day. There's a special envelope for these ballots that keeps them separate until the registration is processed and verified. Anyone who's been through election officer training should know this, including the individuals who spoke at your last meeting and provided misinformation on how the process works. Same-day voter registration is available in 23 states, and California has had same-day voter registration since 2012. Seriously, shame on you for making it harder for people to vote. You can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we dispense with the clapping? You'll have your opportunity to speak if you signed a card. Andrew Dadasavich, I'm sorry I'm mispronouncing your name. If you'll.
Okay, my name is Andrew Dadasavich, and I'm a full-time worker as an attorney here in San Joaquin County. I think that the name Election Advisory Committee should actually be turned into Voter Suppression Advisory Committee because what has been done here seems to be the goal of voter suppression. You should be focused not on voter suppression, but getting turnout, getting people to actually go and vote. If you're scared of losing an election because Democrats show up, then get your Republican friends to show up. You're advocating for the end of vote by mail, ballot drop boxes, and same-day voter registration. And then you want voter ID laws. So what will us workers do? Take off half our day, our entire day to vote? Because I know that when I went in person to vote, the polling station was inadequate for parking, and we had people, it took me over 30 minutes to just turn in my vote by mail ballot in person. What about for caregivers who can't leave their loved ones at home the entire day for election day? What are they supposed to do? Just not vote? And what about the people that need the care? My grandfather can't go in person to vote right now. He needs caregiving. I go and caregive for him one day a week. If I can't go and he can't go, that's 2 votes gone. When I recently moved and I changed my address with the DMV, they said, oh, write your new address on a piece of paper and stick it on the back of your driver's license. That's enough. Do you think that when I go in person to vote and show them my ID and show, oh, but I got this address on the back, that people are going to believe me? No. What about if I got my name changed and they still don't want to give me a new ID? What am I going to do then? Just not vote? How is that fair? And then for ballot drop boxes, why does the county already have ballot drop boxes and now you want to change the policy and waste all the money that you bought those drop boxes with? That doesn't make sense to me. So I would encourage this board, stop trying to disenfranchise your voters. That's the whole point of this committee. You need to make sure that voters are allowed to vote. Make it easier, don't make it harder. There's no voter fraud that's been alleged that would change any of these elections here in San Joaquin County. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Knowlton.
Good evening. Your proposed measures are voter suppression, pure and simple. San Joaquin County has worked hard to shake its label as California's backwater. The Jim Crow era repression you are proposing reaffirms this. You should be making it easier to vote, not more difficult. Elections need to be won on the merits of ideas and the people running in them, not because one group limits access to everyone else. My husband and I have worked on election night for 4 years. 3 of those we were assigned a drop box, both in Stockton and in Lodi. What we saw were people racing from their lunch hour or after work to vote. Voting has meaning, and we need to help people do it as easily as possible. We need additional drop boxes, not less, particularly in Lodi. Mail-in balloting is great for busy families, for the elderly, for kids away at college, for our military. It's worked everywhere in this country and has become a sacred right. Talking of eliminating it is not only absurd, it's stupid. It is not your business to sit in judgment of why people register to vote at the last minute, mail in their ballots, or use a drop box. Your job is to make the voting process as easy and as transparent as possible. Those voters are not your enemy. They are everyday people who simply want to vote. Do not restrict voting access. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Estrada.
So many people have said so many good things. I'm just going to say one thing. If there's been voter fraud, please show the proof, prove it. So many cases have been brought since 2020 and before. Nothing has come up. Nobody can prove it. Nobody can find it. It's just a rumor. It's a vicious rumor. And it's creating all this. Our country is a mess right now. Who knows what we're going to be in 2 years because of all the stuff that's happening. So please, just show the voter fraud. If you can do that, maybe we'll go for some of this stuff. I don't think you can. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Maureen Abreu. Maybe you can. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Abreu. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I think this is a solution in search of a problem. I think that strict voter identification laws are calculated to disenfranchise the poor, the elderly, youth with disabilities, and people of color who are statistically less likely to have government-issued ID. California allows ballots postmarked by election day to arrive up to 7 days later and still be counted. People are, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that a requirement for documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections is preempted by the National Voter Registration Act. The Registrar of Voters is supposed to be apolitical, nonpartisan. When you move that position from under the direction of the county administrator to under board control, that was the first move for voter suppression. So I think that what we need to think about is having access, voter access, due process, and election integrity. And that's what's trying to be taken away.
Thank you. Anarel Pichalandet. That's close enough. If there's someone else with that name, we'll let them speak also.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Andrew.
I just recently heard about these issues, and I'm just totally shocked. My parents have both passed. I was a caretaker for both of them. We have voted by mail for many, many years. We've been very proud of how the elections have been run. I've been totally shocked watching the false claims, especially since the election before the last, about stolen elections and improper processes and no proof over and over again. I can't believe that this group is considering reducing points that we can deliver our mail to. Drop boxes. Lodi had a restriction last year. We need more drop boxes. We need to be able to vote by mail. It's hard for people, especially full-time working people. My background is I worked for the state, I worked for media. I now am retired. I pursue 2 different fields. But I have empathy for those that work, especially younger people, that many of them are working 2 jobs at this time. It's getting more and more difficult to vote. Why is this group trying to create conditions for a situation that doesn't exist? Like it has been said previously, we should have more boxes, more drop boxes. We should be more flexible for the votes to come through. This is Jim Crow era. If you study your history, what they did to black people during the Jim Crow period, which I'm afraid our country is headed towards that direction. They had them do tests. They had them do this, do that, do math. These things are adding more restrictions when we don't have the fraud that keeps being claimed. Please do what's right, make it proper, make it easy for people to vote. If there's challenges, if there's issues, they need to be addressed on each merit. But make sure that all people can vote and you're not throwing up more obstacles for voters. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Carla Huni. Carla Huni.
Good evening. It's nice to see that the room is full and everybody's finally caring about this. Let's go back just a little bit though. Before, I don't know, we'll say 2015, and anytime you do anything, whether you drive a car, you fish, you have to show ID. So I don't know what the issue is that you feel it's suppression, okay? So anyway, and then let's talk about vote by mail a little bit. There's been, for a very long time, an absentee ballot program in place. And that was for anybody that had cause that could not get out, or if they were going to be out of the country. Vote by mail and absentee is 2 different programs. Understand that. Military is called CAVA, and it's for all deployed military, and they get to mail in their ballots from overseas. So I'm going to go into another subject now. So the Board of Supervisors had a discussion regarding state mandated programs that are not being state funded. As money gets tighter, and it's going to before it gets better, we need to push back on state mandated programs. And two of those programs are electing drop boxes and vote by mail. They were put in place for COVID, paid for by Mark Zuckerberg, and they need to go away. And I can prove that, so stop your laughing.
If you can't contain yourself, please leave the room. No one else
So when
is-
you, go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, no one is going to be harassed while they're speaking. I don't care.
Thank you.
Where or who you come from.
So one of the things that the ROV office is worried about, it took so long to do the vote by mail verifications. It took a very long time. And we're not going to have that time with some of the bills that are coming up. So you look at the printing cost, you look at every envelope has to be photographed, they have to do pickups at all 25 boxes. It just goes on and on and on. Why do you guys have a problem? If you're able to vote in person and show your ID, it's not hard. We used to do that. What, we've all gotten lazy? Maybe. Okay, so then, let's see, let's go down here. So we show, like I said, we show ID for almost everything. So why is all of this still in place? Because our California government decided that we needed to keep these programs. They're not needed, they're not necessary, and they're a waste of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly Watkins.
Good evening, committee. How are you? So I wanted to reinforce what you did at the last meeting and your recommendation up to the supervisors. So Congressman Pete Sessions out of Texas has a draft bill for Congress called Make Election Secure Act. And in that act, he has 5 principles that he wants to fix. That paper ballots will be used and hand marked and hand counted. Second, that the voters will show ID and that all registered voters must be citizens. Number 3 is that elections will take 3 days. I'd still like to see 1 day, but he was going to make all elections in the United States 3 days. Number 4 is that there will be a very limited mail-in ballots. So again, as Carla said, if you have issues, if you're out of the country, you would fit in that small category. And the 5th thing that this federal law would do is create paper poll books and small precincts. So no precinct would be larger than 1,500 people. We would be able to vote easily in a facility and then count those ballots after the election. After the close of the election, and by midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, we should have answers. So what you're doing is reflecting in the national election ideas the same, and so don't feel like you're isolated or you're not on the right page because you're all on the same page. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. David, Rob.
Hello, I'm David Robb. I've been a practicing scientist for over 50 years and been working for several years now, analyzing various election issues, including our voter rolls. For those who don't know, our voter rolls are a key component of fair and accurate elections in the county. If they are not clean, if they are not accurate, there is great opportunity for fraud and misuse of our election systems. I've been recently analyzing some of our current rolls and have found something that is particularly interesting. It appears that there are several thousand entries in our voter rolls of people who have been canceled and then anywhere from months to years later have been restored to those rolls, oftentimes at the same address, even though they moved away those years previous. I found at least over 2,000 in the rolls. I did a subset of those and found over 100 of them that had post office permanent move addresses for them to somewhere outside of the county. Yet they were registered here in San Joaquin, and many of them voted in the last election. I found a further subset of those. There were 20 that we went into some detail to investigate. Those 20 now live somewhere outside of San Joaquin, yet they have votes recorded for them in this county. Those 20 were the same people registered here at the same address that they had left from several years previously. It appears that our voter rolls are being stuffed with voters registered, have moved away, had their registrations canceled, yet their previous information is being used to create new voters, new registrations, I should say, for those voters. The 20 I mentioned had votes recorded for both here and their new state. We have investigations right now going on to contact those voters. Now some might say that those voters are an instance of people trying to commit fraud and double voting. That is unlikely to be the case. In fact, it's quite likely that those voters don't even know that their name and information is being used in this county. In other words, it's a kind of identity theft. So I've had occasion to work with other researchers across the state of California and other states and find that this is not an uncommon situation.
Time is up. Wrap it up in 10 seconds here.
Okay. Looking at the state of California, it looks like we have somewhere in excess of 90,000 registrations that are similar. So our voter rolls are not safe, not secure, and not accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary L., is it? Kenefick?
Chairman,
Yes.
I had a question for you.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, are we allowed to make any follow-up questions to the public comments?
We usually don't. I'm sure that as a courtesy, if we want to, we might end up engaging ourselves in difference of opinions here, and we're not gonna, I don't want to devolve into that. So we will listen to the public. That is one of the reasons we're here. It's one of our purposes is to hear those things, and they are being recorded, but we are not going to engage ourselves because we would then be, we ought to be over there making our comments behind that. Thank you, I'm sorry. Yes, Mary, your time.
Good evening.
I didn't
Mary.
take much of your time, Mary.
Okay, I'm sure you'll credit me back at the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Is this too loud?
No,
I have
not
a
at
big
all.
voice. I apologize for my hoarseness. I'm not sick. It's complicated. Not going to explain. I represent the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County, some 80 women in the county who are constantly working to register voters, to provide nonpartisan information to potential voters, to make as easy as possible the process. The League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County opposes unnecessary voting restrictions that could disenfranchise voters and disrupt secure election processes. California already has strong voter ID verification, signature checks, and voter roll maintenance, ensuring fair elections. Experts agree that voter fraud is exceedingly rare, making additional regulations unwarranted. Stricter voter ID laws disproportionately affect marginalized groups. Studies show that nearly 21 million U.S. citizens lack a non-expired driver's license, with Black and Hispanic communities being most impacted. The elderly, disabled individuals, students, and people who have changed their names face additional burdens in obtaining valid IDs. The process of securing identification is often costly and time-consuming, functioning as a poll tax that discourages voter participation. Requiring documentary proof of citizenship to vote creates unnecessary barriers. California already verifies citizenship through attestation under penalty of perjury. Over 21 million voting-age citizens lack easy access to birth certificates, passports, or official documentation. Federal law only requires attestation of citizenship for voter registration, and the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that states cannot mandate additional proof for federal elections. Mandating large-scale voter roll audits without clear guidelines risks disenfranchising eligible voters. External audits could lead to inconsistent standards and improper purging of voter rolls. Signature verification rules must be applied fairly to ensure ballots are not rejected without cause. Imposing strict deadlines for ballot counting is unrealistic, especially in large counters where millions of ballots must be processed. Ensuring proper verification and tabulation takes time, and rushing the process increases the risk of errors. California law allows ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted if received within 7 days, a safeguard that ensures all valid votes are counted. Restrictive voting laws disproportionately affect marginalized communities and introduce chaos into elections. LWVSJC advocates for voter protections, fair election processes, and the rejection of policies that create unnecessary burdens to participation. Now, in my comments, I have limited myself to the things I could get into my time limit.
Thank you.
There are other issues, but we are all vigorously in the league against any voter repression.
Thank you, ma'am. Ken Stedfeld.
Good evening. Since I only found out about this meeting today, and I'm here to echo a lot of the comments that have already been made, my main question is why? What proof has there been to solidify these kind of actions against a process that's been in place for many years? I challenge whoever is responsible for taking the vote here, whether hopefully you have an open mind to listen to what the public is saying rather than already making up your minds based upon your, whatever your convictions are. It's very important that you listen to the public at large, your constituents, because you're representing us. And we feel strongly about this issue, as you can see with, like myself, my wife, finding out about this today. We feel strongly that voter suppression, voter actions that will limit the ability to voice your opinion or your vote is very much an issue that needs to be rectified from the standpoint that the process that's been in place for many years, without proof of any negative or otherwise any disenfranchisement of voters through fraud, you have to take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Jones.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak before you. I too just learned of this meeting today, and it certainly got my attention. I'm a retired California public administrator. I worked in education for 38 years as a teacher, vice principal, and principal. Voting and teaching our students about voting was an extremely important part of our curriculum. And yes, we did say the Pledge of Allegiance every day in every classroom. I'm here because California has allowed for mail-in ballots since 1966. Why is it in 2025 in San Joaquin County? It's suddenly a problem. My elderly mother votes by mail. She would not be able to if that were not afforded to her. It's convenient. I voted by mail when I was raising my family because I worked 12 hours a day. I voted for a mail-in ballot because it was convenient. I could lay everything out on my table. I could study it. I could research it. If I had to leave for 10 minutes, I could leave the mess on my kitchen table. I really enjoyed that research process. So taking that away, again, I asked like Ken, why? Why would you do that? To me, it's voter suppression. What were we doing in California in 1966 when we started this? We were in the middle of the civil rights movement. So California did something remarkable during that time period. Actually made voting more convenient for people. If you do a one-day thing, you're going to disenfranchise. Everyone's talked about it. You're disabled, you're students, people with disabilities, you're elderly. I live in Del Webb in Manteca. Do you know how many elderly people will not be able to vote if you do that just within my community? How dare you? And shame on you. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And that's what's happening here. But we see what you're doing. You guys need to do the right thing by your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Debbie Stedfeld.
Hi. I'm not much of a speaker, but this is really, I'm an emotional person. This is very important to me. And you can tell that my husband and I have been married for 50 years because he said exactly what I wrote down on my paper just minutes ago without even talking to him, that you guys are here for us. And there have been a lot of intelligent things being said that I can agree with. And I've been very disillusioned with our politics lately. And I'm afraid that you aren't gonna listen to us. You're just gonna vote and do what you plan to do anyway. But I'm hoping and I'm praying that you'll listen, because we need to vote. It's a very important thing to me. I've been voting since I was able to vote, since I was 18. And it's very near and dear to my heart, and I feel like we all need to be able to have that opportunity. And I just hope that your ears are open and your hearts are open and your minds are open. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Jones.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to express myself. My name is Carol Jones. I'm from Lodi. I'm here today to respectfully oppose the time and resources being spent by this advisory board in its quest to alter the election code by writing letters to Governor Newsom. Driving a car is a privilege. In order to do so legally, there are numerous hurdles that one must get over first, and rightfully so. However, voting is a right of all legal citizens, not a privilege. Our state laws are in place to ensure that all eligible voters can access their right unless there is a factually based and court-tested reason to limit access. You all sent a letter to Governor Newsom last month recommending that voters should be required to present ID at the polls. The only reason given in support of this was that 36 other states require it. You also wanted to end same-day voter registration because 1, lots of other states don't allow it. 2, California takes the longest to certify its election results, and we are the biggest population, by the way. And 3, by your interpretation, there is a discrepancy between the ROV websites and the California Election Code. You give no data or evidence of any harm, and if you had any such evidence, you'd be in court where such things are adjudicated. Tonight, the topic is discuss vote by mail and ballot drop-off location requirements and recommend that the Board of Supervisors advocate for the removal of these requirements from the election code. Well, again, if you had any evidence of harm, you'd be in court, and the courts have already ruled. So exactly what is advocating for the governor supposed to do? This is just a huge waste of time and resources. There's got to be something the Board of Supervisors can be doing to be productive beyond convening a special advisory board to write letters to the governor. I respectfully request that the board please stop wasting time and resources of the citizens of San Joaquin County pursuant to your complaints about the election code. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bobby Bivens. Is there a Bobby Vivens here? Oh, thank you.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Bobby Bivens. I am the president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and colored people come in all colors. I don't know how familiar you all are with the association that I'm the local president of, but we've been in existence since 1909, 115 years. We are the oldest civil rights organization in America. We are very concerned continuously about openness in voting and opportunities for all people to vote. We are the organization that is responsible for trying to make sure that that happens and that all people are included. Part of that means that we go out throughout the years and do voter registration, voter education, and support the systems that have fair and just voting processes. We are opposed to the letter that the board wrote today to the governor. We are opposed to any form of voter suppression. It is difficult enough to get people to vote. And what we would hope that the county would do was maybe send a letter to the governor asking for money to do voter education, since we don't teach government in schools anymore, that our voters don't know the issues, that they don't know who the candidates are, and that we are allowed to have candidates that don't even represent our communities. That is what we need to be talking about, not about further suppressing the vote. As I look around this room, and I said, now how am I going to do this without alienating somebody? But the truth is, I usually don't even care about alienating people. And I certainly don't when it comes to this issue. We must, in our county, make sure that we have easy voting access for all of our citizens. We're one of the most diverse linguistically and ethnically communities in America. So we certainly should not be trying to put an extra barrier in front of the voters. When we talk about voter fraud if you think about it and you look about all the data and all the reports that have come out, the majority of the folks that have committed voter frauds are not immigrants. They're not black people. They're not Latino people. They are people that are trying to push an agenda that's not beneficial to the entire country. So I think we need to honestly look at that. We ask that you consider not doing anything that causes any level of voter suppression in San Joaquin County. Thank you.
Thank you. We will return to our normal agenda, and we have consent items. And the first consent item,
Chairman Amador.
oh, yes, that's right, you were going, I apologize.
Okay.
You
Did you
had
still want to read the
Yes,
written public comment?
yes, there's some that were, how many do we have that you're going to read?
14, I'm told.
And those are written comments. Why don't they be added to the agenda instead of 14 times 3? And we'll be out of here at midnight, and I know they're gonna kick us out before then. Can't we add them to the record? Is there any objection to adding those comments to our record? And maybe you can read all of their names if you'd like to do that. Unless, I'll let in fact, I'll let the body decide if they want to hear 14 written comments, or if we can make them a part of our record. Yes, Patricia.
I'll make a motion that we put them in our records. They are noted and they are recorded. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the written comments into the record and not read them individually.
I second.
There's a second, a motion made and seconded. There won't be any discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? With that unanimous vote, that's what we'll do then. Thank you.
So these will be in the record, and we'll post them on the website with the rest of the materials as well.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll go to the consent items, and I apologize for not calling on you. We have, let's see, we have 3 consent items. Is there any objection to having these made part of the record? Is there any reason any member would like to pull one, that they're consent items? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we accept the consent items. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Seconded. With that, I'll call for the vote. All of those in favor of making the consent items part of our record, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? There being none, they'll be part of the record. Discussion items. Our first discussion item is discuss vote by mail and ballot drop-off location requirements and recommend that the Board of Supervisors advocate for the removal of these requirements from the California Election Code. I will open up to discussion, and as far as this discussion, I would like to hear from the alternates if they're here. But let's start with the members, if you have any discussion regarding this item.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dean?
Thank you.
I thought I heard your voice.
Here I am. I want to back up. First off, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I do mean everybody, even sign holders in the middle of the meeting. 70%. Yeah, and you are correct, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that at 70, I'll address your sign, because I do think it is really important. For the person who said that they were afraid I was wasting your time by putting this advisory board to committee together, it wasn't that I didn't have anything else to do on Thursday nights. I think it's really important that everybody has input into the process before the board does anything officially, and that's why we've done it. Let me back up to a year and a half ago when this started, and we seem to have kind of short memories of why we did this. We started doing it when Shaq Khan was indicted for voter fraud in Lodi a year and a half ago, subsequently, arrested and convicted of voter fraud. And it reminded me of a paper I wrote in 1981. I think I was 18 years old, on the Australian ballot. And I'll give you the shortened version of it because I think the Board of Supervisors is tired of hearing about it. But the Australian ballot was basically, it was designed to protect an individual's right to vote. The way elections used to be held in this county or in this country, and trust me, we weren't the first to correct our system. The United Kingdom, France, everybody figured it out before we did, was the way they used to have elections. They'd call everybody together in the town square, this late 1800s, and the candidates would come up and they'd say, all those in favor for Jim Brown, raise your hand. The problem is at that time, the large property owners would bring their workers in, and there was a heavy persuasion for them to vote the way the person that was writing them their check, or the renter of their house, et cetera. My concern with, and then I want to address the difference between absentee ballots and mail ballots, and they've also gotten in, if you look other states, they call them postal ballots, they don't even call them absentee ballots, was the reason for the Australian ballot is to guarantee, not give somebody an opportunity, but to guarantee every man and woman, regardless of creed, color, race, religion, the right to vote in privacy. And the reason they did that is because they didn't want any undue influence on any voter. You have a moral and legal obligation and right to lie to your spouse about how you're going to vote. You can tell them anything you want. You should be able to go into that ballot box and in private vote any way you want. And that was my gut at that time after reading the Shaq Khan indictment, because what he was indicted for was going into people's houses, collecting ballots from individuals who felt like they had an obligation to him to sign their ballots and hand them over, which was exactly why the Australian ballot was created. For the individuals that talked about absentee ballots being available since 1966, absolutely correct. And they will continue to be available. In fact, I believe prior to COVID, the election before COVID, there are 81,000 ballots that were voted by absentee ballot, and those will continue. If you are disabled, if you are working from home, in fact, I'll tell you, somebody made a comment about if you're sick, you can apply for an absentee ballot. That's actually not true anymore. You do not have to give a reason to the elections office anymore. You simply apply. And the reason for that is, and that helps with the voter rolls too, because you have to be registered to vote on the voter rolls. So that will continue. There's no reason that somebody, what we're trying to do is go back prior to COVID, and we're looking at this. And let me tell you why is, my first responsibility as a supervisor, and this is why you being here and speaking your mind in this election panel is so important to me. My number one, well, I have two responsibilities. One is the safety of my constituents, and number two is to protect the checkbook. Everything we do outside the normal system that the state and feds require us to do, we're not getting reimbursed for all of it. So I hope you understand that. So when, if you want to argue for 25 drop boxes or 50 drop boxes or whatever you're doing, just like, I think I should have a larger house versus a smaller house. At the end of the day, I got to pay for it. And it's the same with this election system. Every time you do, for instance, same-day registration, that verification process, the amount of people we had to bring on, we're paying for that out of our general fund. And the governor's not giving us the money to pay for it. So as we go through any type of economic situation, that's what I'm weighing. So I have to weigh, number one, an individual to protect every individual's right to vote, bar none, and then how do I do that at the most economic way possible? We have the drop boxes came about during COVID for a very good reason. Do we still have that reason? Or are we better off using the 144 mailboxes that are spread out, plus the postman that'll pick up your mail, what have you? It all goes into the same spot. You still have the right to vote by mail absentee, like you did before. The only difference is the added postage cost of us mailing a ballot to every single person on that registration roll, regardless if they're real, not real. We're not even gonna get in that. I could care less. It's over, I can't even remember the dollar amount per ballot, the ones we mail out. It's expensive.
We spend over $1 million just mailing out ballots.
Okay. Now, if it was cost versus an individual's right to vote, I choose the individual's right to vote. Okay, we'll find the money. But if we're already taking care of that problem and we're guaranteeing everybody's right to vote, they can request an absentee ballot. You don't have to give a reason anymore. And you can request it as a permanent, so you don't have to reapply. That's the way it was during COVID. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say, can we get to the exact same place, without spending millions of dollars that we're not getting requested, so that when our public needs money for sheriff, streets, and everything else, that we have it. When you talked about the 70%.
In 2019, it was 65%.
Yeah, and you are correct. And just so you know, yeah, so that 70% was a mixture of absentee ballots that went in there on the mail, and half of those went to the polling places because people, just like, yeah, you can ask the register of voters. We've went over this 100 times. To the former teacher, that's the way I want to vote. I want to spread everything all over my table, and I'm going to spend 3-4 days going through everything. I vote for it by absentee, and do that. But I don't want to drop and it's my own personal choice, I don't want to drop my ballot in a mailbox or in a drop box because I still like walking into a polling place. I like the little stickers. I like seeing Mary down the street that I only see maybe once a year. It feels like Americana. That's my choice. But that ballot that I dropped at the polling place is counted in those absentee numbers as well. So I listened to you, okay? And I've been listening to voters for a year and a half, and I'm glad and I will continue to do it. And we all need to be respectful of each other, especially with what's going on these days. It's the only thing I ask is, I love decorum, okay? The reason this panel is here is for you to tell me what you think so that I can take that to the Board of Supervisors. For this panel, which I've had every supervisor, Republican and Democrat, appoint members to tell me, what do we do about this? How do we do this that we are being fiscally responsible and that we are taking care of a very, very sacred right that every American is given the right to vote? So that's what I'm trying to do here. And that's all.
Thank you, Supervisor. Please, let's not be clapping or cheering. Let's have some decorum in here. We are to our first discussion item. Is there any other folks that want to speak? Any members? Is there any, we are recommending that the Board of Supervisors advocate for the removal of these requirements from the California Election Code. Yes, you have a question?
Question, so in this discussion item, if we vote for the adoption of this particular item, we just talked about the difference between the vote by mail and absentee. If we do adopt this item and authorize the Board of Supervisors to advocate for the removal of these requirements, that's not, I'm asking, is that not going to affect any absentee specifically? Is that correct?
Supervisor Ding, can you answer that?
Well, I
For the
would,
board?
obviously, as the advisory panel, you wouldn't want to advise the Board of Supervisors to eliminate all mail ballots. That wouldn't make any sense, because then you would be obstructing people's right to vote. So whatever, it's whatever you think is the right thing. I mean, what I use is a pre-COVID kind of analogy, where we want to, everybody has a right to request an absentee ballot. So, and that saves us millions of dollars, and it doesn't obstruct anybody's ability to vote. So, I mean, however you decide to word it, based on what you've heard from the fine individuals here who are very passionate, and you're right, we do not want to obstruct anybody's right to do. I also have one other burden that everybody else doesn't have, and that's I have to help decide how to pay for it, and if we actually have to spend the money.
Is there a, yes, Patricia?
Thank you. So, when the public was speaking, somebody got up and they spoke about Board of Supervisors writing a letter to the governor to see about having a cost implemented, reimbursement implemented. Supervisor Dean was over there going,
Show me the money.
Right. Supervisor Dean is not against vote by mail or the ballot drop-off, because it doesn't deny people the right to vote when it's convenient, when it's inconvenient for them to go in. I suggest that we advise the Board of Supervisors to try to put it into their budget or write a letter for reimbursement, something to that nature.
Take it out of your budget.
I don't have a budget.
Do you, no sidebars, please. Do you have a motion, Patricia, that you are recommending?
Through the chair, may I just suggest something, if that's okay?
Yes.
So something that I'm working on with our organization, the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, is the state of Colorado is reimbursing their counties 45% of the cost of their elections. What's happening, and to Supervisor Ding's point, we get reimbursed a portion of the cost from all of the jurisdictions smaller than us. So the cities, the special districts, the school districts, they have to pay their portion of costs, but the state and the federal races are not paying their portion of costs. And so what's happening is we're absorbing all the costs, whether it's at the county level, the school board level, the special district level, we're still absorbing those costs. So collectively, whatever side you're on, to get money back for these things that are costing us is, I think, where Supervisor Ding is coming from, if I'm not mistaken. So just something to think about. I wanted to share that so that you do know that there is a state that's doing something about that. I know that that might be a long shot, but something that you all could consider and look into.
So then I would like to make a motion that this get tabled for more further discussion.
There's a motion to table this. Is there a second on that? All right, being no table, we'll address it here. The issue is,
Chair.
discuss vote by mail. Let me finish reading this and then I'll give you
Pamela.
back the floor in a minute. Vote by mail and drop-off location requirements and recommend that the Board of Supervisors advocate for the removal of these requirements from the California Election Code. So with that, David Cushman has the floor, then Pamela, and then we'll go back to you.
My question is, any action that we take tonight on any of these items that's left on our agenda, and my question is, none of that would affect early in-person voting in the county, correct? We're not talking about that at all. We're not advocating for or against that at all. Is that correct?
Supervisor Ding, would you have an answer to that?
You're telling me. I mean, this is an advisory.
Yeah.
Forget about me. Forget about the
I-
Board of
I-
Supervisors. You're writing an advisory opinion to the board.
I mean, yeah, based on what's written, I don't think we would be talking about that, affecting that, and I wouldn't be advocating changing that at all. So that was my question.
Pamela Sloan.
Yes. I think what we have here is exactly not what we want to say. After hearing Supervisor Ding and his explanation that he's for the voter, he's voting, he wants everybody to be able to have the opportunity to vote. So I'm thinking perhaps it's not about removing vote by mail or drop boxes, but more the process of getting the funding source in place in order to help pay for that. And so if the motion would be more like giving the supervisors the direction to approach the state for some funding sources to help alleviate the cost of some of the items that we're talking about, voting by mail or adding drop boxes, is what I would see this to happen. Because the way it's written right now, it's to get rid of those items. And I don't think that's a smart move for people to be able to vote. And that's what I have to say.
All right, so you're opposed removal of these requirements from the California Election Code. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Patricia.
I agree with Pam that, first of all, these are under discussion items and not action items. So how does that work on our agenda?
It's
Do
intended.
do we have backup material for this discussion item?
There was none received from the committee, so there's nothing that was
Okay.
provided.
So my question is if it's a discussion and not an action, I don't mean to table it. I would just I would rather have more information on it. And as Olivia said, there's stuff coming down the pipeline from the schools and other areas of interest okay, whatever you said, I'd like to know more information about it and then bring it back as an action item and not a discussion item.
All right, it's now a discussion item, which we are doing. Shirley Romero, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I think that before a decision is made, I think we really.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think before a final decision is made, I think we really need to evaluate all the comments made from our constituents. Now, if it's a matter of, I'm an accountant, so I can understand when it comes to budgeting and all of that. If it's a matter of getting more resources or more money allocated to that, I think that ideally I would like to see the numbers. I like to see how much money is being withdrawn, how much money we're being used, and what is being given to us. I don't think we have a lot of information provided for us to be able to make a good decision on that. And I also believe from my generation, I think the voting process as it is now, it's a lot more easier, more convenient for a lot of working parents, young students, and all of our communities. And I think we really need to be thoughtful of the people that we're serving and the alternatives that we're able to give to them, because it's very important versus restricting them. We need to be able to perhaps have more education, more places, just a lot more things to get people involved in voting versus taking that away from them. So I really feel that we need more information.
All right, there is not a, it is for discussion, and there's no motion pending, but I would like some more information, and maybe we can add this to the next agenda. The removal of these requirements from the state. I wonder if we can, I'd like some more backup material for this. And I will confess that I have not looked into this myself. There's no motion pending, so
Chair?
we'll move from that discussion.
Chair?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't see you, John.
It's all right. Real briefly, the only thing on here that I would make a comment about is the ballot drop-off boxes. The cost to that always seemed to me to be just a huge waste of money because, as Supervisor Ding pointed out, there's 114 mailboxes in San Joaquin County that people can drop off. Mailmen come to the house. You can easily drop this in the mail anywhere. The cost of creating, maintaining, securing, picking up the drop boxes seems like a huge waste of money to me. So that'd be my only commentary is we got to get rid of those.
Thank you. Anybody else, members? All right, we are going to table this until we are all a little bit better informed on what we're trying to do here. And No, you're out of order. Thank you.
Point of order.
You don't have a point of order. You're not a member of this committee. You're just interfering with our meeting. So thank you. The
Chairman
public comment item is over with.
Chairman,
Yes,
typically we would allow public comment on agendized items such as
on
this.
discussion items.
Yes, we would.
All right, please come forward, identify yourself, and you have 2 minutes.
Once again, my name is David Diskin. I'm sorry that I understand these rules more than you do, and I'm frankly quite disappointed.
I don't need your cute comments, my friend.
This is my
Thank you.
public comment.
Just remember, we're all volunteers, well, maybe not me, volunteers, and we're all trying to do what we think is right. So let's have some respect.
And I'm also disappointed that you are ready to advocate for these after saying that you really don't even understand what this is about.
I said I don't have information. If you want to engage in a one-on-one here with me, I don't have backup material to do it.
All right, it's my public,
Logically, it looks like something we should do.
it's my public comment period, and you said earlier you don't want back and forth, and that's fine.
I apologize.
That's
You're
all
right.
That's all right. Again, I want to bring this back to what I said earlier. The devil is in the details. It sounds like you're advocating for the removal of these requirements. I haven't heard one requirement mentioned today other than funding. And I want to remind you that California law's requirements when it deals with ballot drop-off locations include 1, accessibility for people who have disabilities or any other problems getting to these stations. 2, public announcements and awareness to let people know where these ballot stations are. 3, security measures that I think everyone in this room is all about. And 4, information or requirements about how the ballots are retrieved. These are the requirements that the state imposes on these ballots. And you, I quote, "You are ready to advocate for the removal of these requirements." Part 2 of what I wanted to say is I would love to hear from Ms. Hale about the funding that provides for these ballot requirements. I heard Mr. Ding say that we don't receive a penny, as I think you would. Okay, I'd like some clarification on that, because it's, first of all, my understanding that this committee and the county supervisors declined funding from the state specifically to fund extra ballot boxes in 2016 when we denied the Voter Choice Act. I also understand that we received federal funds from HAVA, other kinds of money from the general fund, and you mentioned earlier also that we've received money from cities that are smaller. So I'd love some more clarification before any decisions are made on this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to discussion item number 2.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Okay, just for clarity, it sounds like this committee would like us to come back with a financial analysis on this at the next
Yes,
meeting.
thank you.
It's very helpful that my team knows well in advance for things to that extent so that we can do a good job of providing that information. So I'm going to take that as direction, hopefully.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't think there's any objection from the committee, is there? Thank you.
Chairman Amador, just to add on that, if there are other items related, other information related to this that this committee would like, please let the chairman know or let staff know so that we can provide that information. As I indicated earlier, there was nothing provided as far as backup, so obviously this is a difficult conversation to have without that type of information.
Yes, thank you. Discussion item number 2. Anyone have any comments? Or want any discussion regarding number 2? Then can you comment on it, Olivia?
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and come up to the front so I can be heard a little bit better here. Okay, San Joaquin County voter roll updates. Some of the information I'm going to provide this evening are already located. We've presented on these topics in the past to the committee, so I'm just going to do a bit of a refresher, and then if there are questions, I can answer those. We have included in the agenda packet printouts showing all the updates from the county election management system and the VoteCal portal for San Joaquin County. These are the current updates as provided in prior meetings. So you will look over the last 4 months that there have been 48,000 entries on the voter rolls of corrections, updates, moves, cancellations, and so on. That's what that documentation shows you. From December 3rd, or hold on, I'm sorry. Keep in mind the voter rolls are constantly changing. The voter registration is permanent for life unless canceled by the Secretary of State or the elections official. Section 2201 of the Elections Code, which was provided in your agenda packet, clarifies when a voter registration can be canceled. From December 3rd, 2024, which was the day we certified the election, until March 7th, which was just last week, or earlier this week, the ROV updated and added over 48,000 voter records according to California law. Agencies that update our department include the California Department of Rehabilitation, the County Health Department, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Social Services, the Franchise Tax Board, Superior Court of each county, the National Change of Address Database, and the VoteCal statewide database. So we are constantly receiving updates. We also have DMV that provides updates, and what's unfortunate is some of these transactions are when you go to DMV and you update or renew your driver's license, we receive an update that says updated, no changes. And so we have to touch the voter roll or the voter's profile for no reason other than we received an update. And so this causes, it looks like all these things are being touched. So keep that in mind. And that is the motor voter program. I'll talk about that a little bit later. New things to know. We did use the credit reporting agency before this last election in the 2024 general. We will continue to use that before every single big election that we have. We combine that with the residency confirmation card. Although both are not required, we do both of those for voter roll maintenance. We also have a NVRA, which is National Voter Registration Act coordinator, as required by law. So I have a staff member in my office that is responsible for working with our public agencies and ensuring that we're in compliance with the law. If a voter has not voted in the last 2 federal elections, they will be made inactive. One thing my office is working on is new ways to track the movement of the voter rolls, and we will run that job once we have enhanced our tracking methods and they have been established. We've heard comment in the past from the committee and from members of the public that there's concerns about the voter rolls, and so I want to create a transparent way for you to see how the adds and removals and updates are occurring, so we're working on showing that to you so that you can see more clearly how that works. It is a process to create that, but we are working on it. 1850 birth date. So that was a big one. When I took this position, we had about 80 people that were showing on the voter roll with an 1850 birth date. We're down to 30. We've been working on it. It got down to 67 in 2022, and today I can tell you that there's 30 people left on the roll that have an 1850 birth date. We're working through it, but again, remember voter registration is permanent, so my office can only follow Elections Code 2200 when it comes to removing people from the voter roll. We can't change the law. Our office has to follow that. So regardless of how you feel about either of those things, it's very important to know that we have to comply with that elections code. And then we also have the National Voter Registration Act, and we also have the Help America Vote Act, which were both things that were put in your packet this evening. 12 voters with birthdays over, so what I did is I Googled. I said, hey Google, so what's the oldest person in California? And it said 107 years old, so I fell on a sword with that number. I have 12 voters on the rolls that are between that 1850 birthday and are over 107 years old. My conclusion, because this happened before and we had like 36 of them and we were investigating them, and somebody, instead of putting 1988, put 1888 or something like that. So there's 12. So I have staff and have given them direction as we're going through our cleanup coming out of the election. They will pull up each of those records and confirm what's going on there. And if we don't have the information we need, we will reach out to the voter just like we will with the 1850 birth dates. So that number is now 42. It was a few hundred when we first took over. So we've made some progress. It may not be perfect, but we are working in the right direction to get where we need to go. We make strong efforts to contact voters with missing information, and we have a project this year that we're going to complete. We will be looking for missing information if we see it exists in a supporting document. So say we only have 3 numbers of a social security number, we will look at the supporting documents attached to that voter to see if we made a clerical error or if the voter left the number off, and then we will reach out and get that information. It is a work in progress. You know, sometimes the voters don't respond, and again, we can't remove them from the roll until we've met the criteria within the elections code. We will continue to make contact with those voters and hopefully strengthen our database. We ask for phone numbers and emails now on the return ballot envelope. Now that's done to help improve the contact information for our voters. Not so much so, and forgive me, Supervisor Ding, so the politicians can bother them during election season, but more so our office can contact them and have good information. So if there is something that comes up or we see a mismatched signature, we can give that voter a call. Hey, we got this in our office, what's going on? So our goal is to get more information so we can be in good contact with each of our voters. Duplicate voters are now tracked at the state level and researched daily in the county office. So if we receive notification that there's somebody that has a similar birth date and social security number in another county, that information is reported to us and we look for duplicate voter entries. And so last I checked, we had about 1,100 of those 2 years ago. I think we have less than 29 the last time I looked at the stats just last week. So our staff is working hard. The Board of Supervisors has been gracious enough to give us a couple extra staff members that helped us 2 years ago with being able to enhance what we're doing with the voter rolls. So it's a work in progress. We're on it the best we can, but it is a work in progress to get it completed. And if you are learning of fraud or you know something, please let me know or let the sheriff know. I will tell you, our sheriff has been very engaged. His special services unit has provided resources to our department. They are on speed dial. Every time I see one little thing, they're probably tired of me. I'll say, hey, what is this? And they'll let me know if there's something there or not. And so they go out and they've reached out to voters and they're helping us to advocate wherever they see a problem. So we're on top of it. I mean, there's always going to be more to do, but I want the committee and the public to know we're doing all we can there. Things to keep in mind: birthplaces are not required when a person registers to vote, and 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote. Birthplace, birth date is required, but birthplace is not required. We do not give pending voter lists out to requesters any longer. We have revamped the request for voter rolls to ensure only those allowed by law get access. This also requires proof from the requester. So that's within the state law and something that we weren't doing. So we are making sure that we're following that, we're cleaning it up, and we're doing everything we need to do. Keep in mind, it's the daily full-time job of 6 people in our office to maintain the voter rolls. A few new laws that have come into effect: we no longer have to send a pre-cancellation card to a deceased voter. So I think I shared that with this committee last year, that there was a silly law in the books. Yes, there are certain times when you've changed your address or something that we send a confirmation card to ensure, or if you register to vote, we send you a card like, hey, did you register to vote? Is this you? And you receive a card. No action taken, but if this is not you, please contact our office. The law was written in such a silly way, or a misprint where they missed it. It also said that we had to send it to deceased voters, and so that to me is disrespectful, that a loved one has died and you've received a card asking you, are you sure you've passed away? So that has been removed from the California Election Code. The new voter motor task force for the SOS is being established, so that was new in January 2025, that they have to reestablish that task force. I plan on having my staff attend those meetings and hopefully get some good information so we can work with DMV and hopefully resolve some of the issues that we see there. That's been a work in progress, and that task force has come and gone over the years. And as we always know, the DMV seems to be the one little headache that we have, and we want to be able to work with them collectively to work through some of those issues. And something just to point out, maybe popular or not, the legislation where they passed at the state level that charter cities and charter jurisdictions that we couldn't impose our own voter ID laws. As you know, that's been a court case and an ongoing battle. So if you know anything about that, or if you have these questions about voter ID, that's something that I highly recommend that everybody looks into and researches. It was in a Southern California city, and that's going to give you a lot of information because you'll see what's going on there. I'm not going to speak on it in either direction, but it's important that we know what's going on in our community and why laws are being established. So I suggest that you research that if you have some more questions about the whole voter ID thing. And that's what I have when it comes to the item on the agenda. I have some ROV comments, but I'll save those for later.
Oh, wait. So that was your comments, but I want to give the members and the alternates a chance to ask you questions. So it'll educate us if we need more education, which we will admit we do need. Anybody have any questions of registrar of voters? Patricia, you have the floor.
No, him, because of this.
No sidebars, please.
A couple of power, because we always get in trouble every meeting we're in together. Sometimes I have Chair Canepa on the other side, and I'm really in trouble. About 5 points ago, you said there's something that's a really stickler. It was just before you said 6 people to maintain. What was that? Can you repeat that again, please?
We do not give these pending voter lists out to requesters any longer. So a pending voter is not considered a registered voter. We went back and forth with our county council and the Secretary of State's attorneys and determined that a pending voter is not considered a registered voter, so we don't give that information out. And then I said we have revamped the request for voter rolls to ensure that it's not a public information type of document. You can't just PRA the voter roll. You have to meet it for a specific criteria. And if you have met that criteria, then you have access to receive a voter roll file. You do have to purchase it, but there's criteria in place. And there was a gentleman that had been doing that work in our office for about 20 years. He's no longer with the county. And when I went in to retrain my new staff to do that, we dug into every little bit of the code, and I was like, okay, we need to apply this properly. So we did a little cleanup work there.
Anybody else? I had one question, that's one. Anybody else? Do we still have deceased people voting?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
And if there is, please report it to me so I can let the sheriff know and he can go figure out what's going on.
All right, we have done our public comment, so we have committee comments from any member of the committee. Any comments today? Alternates? I'm sorry. It's kind of hard to turn my back and address. Our public comment.
Chair.
Our public comment period is over. But we did limit it to that subject, so if there's another subject, we will allow some public comment. So is there anybody else?
You can have public comment on the discussion item if there's people.
Okay. Please come to the podium. Patricia, did you have a question?
No, I
while
thought
they're
you
coming
said,
forward?
I thought you said committee comments. He did, okay.
I did.
Okay.
Carla, are you?
Through the chair.
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Through the chair. My notes that I just read were actually towards the discussion item. They weren't related to my registrar of voters comments. I do
You
have
have
some-
not done your registrar of voters comments?
No, that was just for the discussion item.
I think you should go first, Carla, if you don't mind. I'd like to hear we'll keep it in order. Would you make your comments?
Through the chair, I think she actually, because we're wrapping up the discussion item, so she's doing public comment, and then after that, I would go under the.
Come over here and sit here.
No. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead, Carla. You have the floor. We can't hear you as your speaker on.
Oh, there we go. A green light might be nice. In review of the election code 2201 that Olivia was referring to, and it is in the packet, when voter registration can be canceled. So it's kind of interesting looking at it. And we run across this all the time with specifics between the state and the county. So the county election official, Olivia, has 8 different causes of how they can take somebody off the rolls. The state only has 3. And it's like, so I'm going to read some of them to you, and you could tell me maybe you understand what Olivia has to work with in the rest of the office. Upon the death of the person registered, and that one's also with the state, you can, as a registered voter, and if you work the polling places like I did, you could fill out a card and say, I don't want to be registered to vote anymore. Number 6, pursuant to Article 2, commencing with Section 2220, and that's all it says. So you have to go look up the code to find out what it means. I liked this one the best. Upon the proof that the person is otherwise ineligible to vote. And that's all it says. Just kind of interesting what, and not saying, because I don't know where these came from, but what has to be looked at to do to take somebody off the rolls. So basically, the Secretary of State is mental incompetency if that's been proven legally, upon the proof that the person is presently in prison for the conviction of a felony, or upon the death of the person registered. So that's all that's required by the state and also by the county. So it's just kind of interesting looking at this, and you can see how it kind of does not come together real well and how vague it is. So those problems are ongoing in the California election code between the state, the county, the cities. And just to remember that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. In all fairness, anybody else on not a topic we've already covered? If not, then Olivia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to read this because I wanted to share a little heartfelt sentiment about where me and my office come from. As the Registrar of Voters for San Joaquin County, our primary responsibility is to ensure the integrity and fairness of every election. It's imperative that we remain nonpartisan in our roles to ensure that all voters, regardless of their political affiliation, feel confident that their voices are heard and that the elections are conducted with impartiality and transparency. Being nonpartisan allows us to serve the entire community equally, making certain that every eligible voter has access to the ballot and that all candidates are treated with fairness. This commitment to neutrality ensures that the electoral process reflects the true will of the people of San Joaquin County, free from bias or influence from political parties or individuals. Additionally, as the Registrar of Voters, it is our duty to deliver fair, accurate, and secure elections. This involves not only upholding the California elections codes, but also ensuring that all voters, whether in San Joaquin County or beyond, have confidence in the electoral system. Our role is to facilitate the voting process in a way that reflects the diverse voices of our electorate and to guarantee the transparency of all election processes, from central counting to the 28-day canvass. I am deeply committed to the values of fairness, integrity, and public service, which are foundational to the work I do. The opportunity to serve as the Registrar of Voters is an honor that I take very seriously, and I strive to ensure that every person in our county has an equal opportunity to participate in the process. My nonpartisan stance is essential to maintaining trust, integrity, and transparency in the election process. And additionally, I hold all of my staff to the same high standard, and the board expects nothing less of us. So I just wanted to share that with this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
One last thing, Chairman, I apologize.
Oh.
I will be speaking at the Lodi City Council next week. They've asked me to come and speak in regard to their possible support of the letters we discussed today. I know this probably isn't popular, but I want to make sure that this committee knows that I will be speaking at that city council meeting.
Do you have the date?
It will be on Wednesday, Wednesday the 19th at 6 p.m. at their regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Thank you. Before we schedule our next meeting, I had a question. How many meetings are we budgeted for or allowed, do you know, per year? Because I was gonna propose we have a meeting next month. And,
It's monthly as necessary, you know, at the discretion of the committee.
yeah, we have a lot of heavy stuff on here, so I would suggest we have a meeting next month, schedule our next meeting. If there's no objection, we will have it on the same day that we have it usually in the month, same time. If there's no objection, that's what we will do.
Chairman, can we just specify the date for everyone while we're?
Let me get,
April 10th.
April 10th, is that what you have? We have an alternate, right? April 10th. It shall be April 10th. Is there any objection to that date from the members?
I won't be here. I won't be able to make it.
Thank you.
I won't be able to make it.
All right, you have an alternate?
The next week would be fine. I just can't do it on the 10th. Oh, my alternate?
I'm the alternate and
Okay.
I won't be here. I'm District 2 alternate.
Oh,
Aren't you? No. District 2?
I'm District.
Oh, it's you, I'm sorry. You can set, oh, okay.
the date is set. Everybody, it's amenable for everyone to meet on that date, so that will be our date for our next meeting. Will be the Thursday, the 10th.
Chairman, I also want to point out for the committee, 3 of our members will be terming out at the end of May, I believe. And so those applications will be posted by the clerk of the board. So folks who are interested in potentially being appointed can apply for those positions. And that's districts 1, 3, and 5.
Is there are they precluded from reapplying?
I don't believe so. You
Good,
can reapply.
thank you. All right, 1, 3, and 5. With that, I will entertain a motion. You have a question?
Yeah, we still have committee comments.
We did that already. We've done it twice. You missed out if you wanted to talk. But you have a
No,
chance now.
It got changed.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, I'd like to say, okay, I am so confused. Okay, we
You-
did a committee comments and then the lady in the back
You know
came up and
what?
talked.
Patricia, go ahead,
Okay,
please.
thank you. So, it was brought to my attention that some positions will be terming out and then they can apply. But also, the question was about officers. So some are alternates, some are, because we're appointed, but the officers is also appointed. And the question is, can the officers turn around and be elected by this committee instead of appointed by, I don't know who does it, the whole group of you guys? Or just you?
Josh, can you explain the administrative process or supervisor Dean so she will
Yeah,
understand?
So currently, there's really just the one officer, the chairperson. We might have a secretary as well who's appointed to keep the minutes. The chairperson in particular is appointed by the designee from the board, which is Supervisor Ding. That's the way the committee is formed right now. If there is interest from the committee to reevaluate that, I'm sure we could entertain doing something different. But Chairman Amador.
Patricia, does that answer your question?
Okay, so it doesn't specify about the secretary or the chair, it just is assumed.
The chair
It does specify the chair
Okay.
to the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Dean.
So can the committee question that and change is it a
Assert
bylaw?
the Board of Supervisors, no, we're at their whim, caprice. So he can fire me tomorrow.
I mean, as a committee, you can advise the Board of Supervisors you'd like to do that.
Yeah, if you have a plan that you'd like to do, Patricia, and make a recommendation, we can vote on it and forward it to the Board of Supervisors. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. Any objection?
Okay.
No objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
you.